There have been many variations of the COMPS order regulating overtime and minimum wage. On March 16, 2020, the Colorado Overtime and Minimum Pay Standards Revision Number 36 went into effect. COMPS expanded the definition of time worked, limited overtime exemptions, and imposed additional liability on employers. The definition of time worked has been expanded to include time when an employee is performing labor or a service for the benefit of the employer. This includes the time the employee is permitted to be at work, required or not. This could include when you are required to be at your work location, on duty, or performing a required job activity that take more than 1 minute, for example, clocking in or clocking out. Prior to this COMPS order, the Colorado minimum wage order only applied to 4 industries: retail and services, food and beverage, commercial and support services, and health and medical. With COMPS, minimum wage laws have expanded to include the following industries: insurance, manufacturing, community-centered, and construction.
To continue on with COMPS Order 36, we're first going to look back at COMPS Order 35, which really only covered retail, service, food and beverage, commercial support services, health, and medical. COMPS 36 covers a lot more. There's a short list here, but we can go over those later on. Exemption, Hayden will cover exemption in the next portion of the video. So let's move on from there. Minimum wage is at $12 an hour currently, with a 15% reduction from that $12 for minors and those with disabilities. In certain cases, not all cases. Overtime, employees must be paid time and a half for every hour worked over 40 hours per week or 12 hours per day. So if an employee works a 15-hour day, they must be paid overtime hours for those 3 hours, not 6 cumulatively between the two. Shifts over 5 consecutive hours, employees must be given a 30-minute rest period, and this 30-minute rest period must occur at least 1 hour after the beginning of their shift and at least 1 hour prior to the end of their shift. So employees are not allowed to take this 30-minute rest period at the end of their shift and go home early. Also, employees must be offered 10-minute rest periods for every 4 hours that they work. So if an employee works an 8-hour work shift, then they must be offered 2 of these rest periods. They are, however, allowed to deny these rest periods, but that brings up controversy in the fact that if an employee denies both of their rest periods, then they should really be paid for 8 hours and 20 minutes because they worked 20 minutes that they really didn't have to. But then again, that's kind of unfair to the employer. So to keep it brief, we'll leave it there, but Hayden will round out the video in the next portion. Thanks, guys.
In order to be eligible for overtime, you must be a non-exempt employee, and there are 2 sets of requirements or tests that tell us whether or not someone is exempt. The first is the salary basis test. In order to pass the salary basis test, your weekly salary must be $684 or more. For example, if you work 40 hours per week and earn $15 per hour, your weekly salary would be $600 and you would not be meeting the salary basis test. This amount is going to increase on January 1st, 2021 to $778.85 per week. The second is the duty basis test. In order to pass the duty basis test, your primary job duties must be supervisory, executive, administrative, outside sales, or professional. If you're unsure what your primary job duties are, please talk to your manager or your human resources team. You must be meeting both the salary basis test and the duty basis test in order to be an exempt employee and ineligible for overtime. If you have any questions about how COMPS will affect you, please contact your HR team and we'd be happy to discuss it in more depth. We also encourage you to visit the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment website and learn more about COMPS. Finally, if you know someone who is not adhering to labor laws or you have any other concerns, please know that you can bring that to your human resources team without fear of retaliation.